Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 9 of this Sky F1 Vodcast. And on a Friday, we've got something a little bit different for you, all the way tuning in live from his farm in Perth. I'm delighted to say we've got 7-time Grand Prix winner and Renault driver Daniel Ricciardo. Daniel, hello. And alongside that, we've got Manchester United legend and total petrol head, Michael Carrick. Michael, welcome along. I really appreciate it, joining myself and Natalie Pinkham today. Let's start with you though, Daniel. How are you? How are you keeping? How's the farm? And are you doing any shearing?
Straight to it. Hard-hitting questions. I like it. Mate, I'm doing well. I'm doing really well. I think especially for the situation right now, I'm certainly as well as can be. And yeah, the farm's good. I fear if I stay out here too much longer though, I'm set. Like, I'm never leaving here. So I feel like when I go back into a city and see a set of traffic lights, I'm gonna freak out or something. So but no shearing yet. No shearing. I was gonna do some the other day, and let's say the professional was having a bit of a hard run, so I thought it wasn't the day to do it.
And what about you, Michael? What have you been up to?
Same as most. I don't live in a place that's half the size of Australia as Dan's farm, so I just got the back garden to play in with the kids. But similar really. First few weeks been homeschooling with the children. They're 10 and 12, so been looking after them, trying to occupy them as well. And yeah, I mean, being in the house, I've not even the shops, not even done anything. A few runs, trying to keep fit, trying to keep active a little bit for my own sanity, really, and getting out and about. But yeah, just quiet, really, just enjoying the quiet life as much as we can, trying to make the most of what we got, because I don't really get that. Like Danny said, you don't really get the opportunity to switch off and for me to spend time with the family as I have. So it's in some ways as sad and as terrible a situation is. I'm just trying to make the most of what we're being given, really.
Michael, as we were saying, we know you're a massive petrol head. We've seen you at loads of Grand Prix over the last few years. Initially, that was when, Daniel, when you were at Red Bull, right? Is that how you guys first got to know each other?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, it was Monaco. I think Monaco might have even been Monaco 2016, the dark day.
Yeah.
Did you help? Did you help you through it?
He helped me through it.
Yeah.
In the end, yeah. It was 2016, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. I remember that obviously the Saturday, after qualifying, the being on the entry station, and it was an amazing feeling. I remember when you came back to the engine station, Danny, and you came back, and the reception you got from everyone was amazing. So standing on that was pretty special to be part of. But obviously Sunday was a disappointment. But I suppose you're easier to talk about that than me, mate.
Well, I think it was. I remember more clearly Sunday night. I think that's where we found ourselves in the same restaurant with a couple of some fluids, let's say. We'll rehydrate. Probably me more so than yourself, Michael. But
I have to say, though, mate. Talking about, I have to say though, how quick you recovered from it was impressive. The disappointment, and obviously, I suppose it's one of the biggest disappointments you'll have had really in your career. But the way you dealt with it I thought was pretty impressive. Not so much that we had a good time that night or the next day, not so much that, but I mean personally how you cope with it, because yeah, I can only imagine what it must have been like. So fair play to you for that.
You've actually been in touch with Daniel quite a bit lately, haven't you? You've been talking to Daniel and comparing the two sports. Just tell us about that.
Yeah, I'm currently doing my pro license, which is the kind of the final leg of your coaching badge to become kind of coach manager. And we've got to do a research study, which I was using this time really to kind of get finished and done. So I asked Daniel to pick his brains, and I said would be 10 to 15 minutes, and it ended up about an hour and 15 minutes. Questions, but actually it was quite interesting. I think the more we spoke, I spoke to 4 or 5 different sportsmen, and it's quite interesting when you start speaking to each other and go into a little bit deeper in the details of you know, how you see the sport and little situations and the mindset and the mentality and that kind of thing. That there's a big crossover, and I found that quite interesting. So I probably bored him for about an hour the other day, but I found it interesting anyway, mate.
do you find it useful?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I think a lot of us kind of get. We get a lot of kicks out of speaking to other sports people, really, and finding like correlations between, you know, football and motor racing. You know, 2 completely different sports, yet actually, you know, the deeper you dive into it, there's quite a lot in common, and I think you find that with so many sports. So, you know, and for me to obviously chat about that to Michael, who's been there and done it all, it's cool. It's cool to have that conversation, and he says he kept me for over an hour, but I was more than happy to let that conversation run.
Obviously,
do you know what was interesting though? Sorry to jump in there. What is interesting is the crossover from the sport of really deep down, we just love the sport we're in. You know, it's the appreciation of like the cat and mouse kind of 1v1. We talking about the overtaking and stuff like that, and I was trying to explain what it was like for me when I make a pass, but not necessarily the spectacular one that everyone recognizes, but the little one of like kind of your appreciation for your craft of when you've set something up and you kind of get one over on someone, and that little one inside you that tells you, yeah, I know about that. We were talking about that, Danny, weren't we? And you kind of lit up just to say, yeah, the same. So it's that appreciation sometimes of your sport that's runs quite deep, and it's probably the love of the sport rather than the glamorous spectacular of all the surroundings. That every time I spoke to someone about it, and Danny in particular, it was like, yeah, that's me. That's when it lights up, when I get someone and I've set them up and I overtake them, and that's like the beauty of why we're in this competition. So it was interesting.
I think Zoom's been amazing for all of us to keep this conversation going, and to talk about these transferable skills between sports is actually really useful use of your time at the moment. But just tell us, Michael, how you first got into motorsport, because I know you've loved it for a long time, haven't you?
Yeah, I've always enjoyed watching it. Enjoyed watching it as a kid, to be honest. Just probably football got in the way a lot, so I didn't get to see an awful lot on TV, but I always enjoyed watching it when I could. I went to my first Grand Prix, I think Silverstone, I got 2002. And then ever since then, I've just tried to stay involved and try and get as much as I can. Obviously, our calendar and schedule only allows me, or has done over the years, to kind of June's the only one. Silverstone's the last one I can squeeze in at the start of July. But other than that, the rest of the year is pretty much a write-off. But I always keep tabs on it and watch it. My son's the same. He's taken over now and he loves it. He's been watching the virtual. I forgot the name of it. He's been watching that. He's been logging into that. So yeah, he's following me in them footsteps.
He's a fan of Daniel's as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a huge fan. Yeah, he's a huge fan. Yeah, he loves him. Yeah, he sits down and he even watches reruns of replays of Grand Prix just to. He just loves it. All the details of it, all the little things that he picks out is quite interesting. But yeah, he's a big fan of Daniel.
Daniel, tell me, we had Carlos Sainz on here the other day. I mean, there's different levels of frustration amongst the drivers. You know, we still don't know when we're going to get going. We're hearing a little bit, maybe we might get going behind closed doors in Austria. What are you hearing from your side, albeit on the other side of the world, on your farm, away from everything at the moment?
Yeah, it's amazing the intel cows and sheep can have. You know, their hearing's really good, but yeah, I'm hearing, I guess, similar things. You know, there's obviously a push for a season to happen. You know, given the right circumstances, and if that means some of it or the start of it is behind closed doors, yeah, I mean, from my side, so be it. You know, as a competitor and for sure not racing since, November, December. All I want to do right now is go racing. So as soon as they say we're all clear to go, of course with a crowd it's nice, but if we can still race without, then I'll take that any day.
Talking of sheep shearing, have you been cutting your own hair, Michael?
What do you think? It's actually my wife who's done it.
Good.
It's not bad. I'll take it. I might stick with it a bit shorter now. Now I've seen it like this. It was a bit of a shock to start with, but it's a lot easier anyway to deal with.
Take years off you.
I'm not the only one, I think. I'm not the only one. When I've seen a few pictures of a few knocking about.
Why do you think Daniel's got his cap on?
Yeah, I want to see that.
Exactly.
Come on, show us.
I look like a wet poodle right now.
Daniel, just take us back to your younger years, because it's quite unusual in many ways for a kid to get into motorsport where you grew up. There's other sports that would definitely lead the way: cricket, Aussie rules, rugby league, rugby union. Why did you get into motorsport so young?
I was always fascinated with the speed, and I loved, I guess, going fast. That was my first passion, was, whether it was riding a bike down a hill or whatever. I loved that feeling of speed and the sound of the wind running, through your hair or into your face. And I don't know, just that whole concept I was drawn to, and I just wanted to go faster and faster. And yeah, then the racing cars, it also seemed quite of like I guess a heroic kind of sport, and there was that element of the coolness about it, and the danger and all those kind of variables which make it the sport that it is. So yeah, I was just drawn to that, I think, more than anything.
Did you have heroes that you wanted to emulate?
I certainly looked up to people, other drivers and athletes. But from a driving side, I mean the obvious ones, and the Sennas and the Schumachers. But it wasn't just Formula One, drivers that I was fond of. There was Dale Earnhardt from NASCAR. He was called the Intimidator, and I loved that. I think as well because I've always been like a pretty easygoing kid, like the nice guy. But when competition comes into play, I'm far from that person, and I like having that little bit of a switch kind of personality in a way when the helmet goes on or when it's time to go.
What about you, Michael? When you first got into Formula One, who've been your heroes over the years and the drivers that you've followed, and where did it sort of come from, that love of motorsport?
I'm not sure where it came from, to be honest. I don't know. I haven't gotten an answer for that, but Mansell probably was Mansell, then going into Damon Hill after that. Not really any real standouts, but I just love watching it. Just the appreciation for speed, and obviously the footage wasn't what we get now, but seeing them onboards in the Senna from Monaco, the famous ones from, and just that appreciation for precision, I think at that speed, something that I always appreciated. So just as it went, I just enjoyed it. I've never really had a standout, and obviously getting to know Daniel a little bit now, it's one that obviously I follow him and support him now. But other than that, it was just a general appreciation for the sport and the speed and the danger as well, especially in the earlier days for me.
Do you know, I've often wondered what football would be like if you could have team radio. If we could just hear you all talking to each other. Good, wouldn't it? Probably a bit too much swearing, but...
I'm not sure you'd want to hear it all.
Daniel, I loved your little diary piece. I'm looking forward to reading those going forward. And I actually loved the fact we had a couple of Sky F1 keynotes in there, JB and Paul di Resta, that made the cut of your all-time, underrated drivers. What inspired you to write that? Boredom?
Yeah, it was... yeah, I guess, making the most of some time and, trying to get a little bit creative and fill some of this extra time we got now. And Yeah, it was, the idea was brought to me, and it was like, okay, no one's really ever, I don't think ever talked about it, at least from a driver, and we all know who's good and whatever, but who maybe was good but didn't get, the light shining on them as much. And anyway, to be honest, I did it, and I was like, all right, I'll send it out. And yeah, it got a lot more awareness than I thought it would. So that was nice. Yeah, so we'll see what's gonna happen next. I joked a bit about overrated drivers, but I'll certainly hold off on that one until I'm a bit older and care a little less.
That is a conversation I want to hear.
Yeah,
I want
exactly.
to have. Tell us who else was on your list of the underrated ones.
Yeah, so there was I did the top, well, let's say 5, and it was just specifically F1. So drivers I'd driven against in F1. So some of those were in junior categories, but they eventually got to F1. So it was Marcus Ericsson, Jules Bianchi, Jensen Button, Roberto Meri, and Antonio Luizzi, or Vittantonio Luizzi. And then I threw Kubica and Durista in there as well. Yeah.
Paul will like that. That was very good of you. We've been asking the fans to get questions in, Daniel. And both of you, obviously, with regards to transfer talk, Michael, that this is something that you've had to put up with throughout your career, I'm sure. And Daniel, obviously, a lot of the questions are surrounding your future now because you're out of contract with Renault at the end of the year. Are you having conversations again, albeit from the farm over there in Perth? Would you rule out a return to Red Bull? Is one of the most common questions I think that's been popping up.
Okay, that's I actually haven't really been asked that one. Would I rule out going back to Red Bull? I guess to answer it, no. Like I think something I've learned growing up in general, kind of just through life, is never say never, and never completely disregard something unless it was, go to prison or something that you really don't want to go back to. But no, never say never. It is hard. It is hard having chats right now in terms of, because we haven't had, we're at a stalemate. Nothing's really happened. And normally chats start to come off the back of, races and results and momentum. So there's honestly not much to talk about for now. It's more just current situation and the rest of it and how we're going to deal with it. But yeah, it's all pretty slow and steady at this stage, to be honest, mate.
But I mean, you haven't got anything to prove, have you? Everyone knows how good you are.
Thanks, Pinks. Thanks. I'm getting jacked out on the farm, but not that that's got anything to do with it. But
I know that you always say you're judged on your last race, but we don't have that at the moment, and it's difficult to judge you on some of the races in the Renault last year. But you can fall back on that not long enough list of wins, but you've got a fair few under your belt from Red Bull. So do you feel confident that you could jump to another team if the offer came?
I think team unrelated. What's the word? Like,
yeah.
I think the thing I'm trying to say is, what I've done in the past, I certainly 100% know I can do again. And I think this time out of the seat, even more so. Like, I started my pre-season training already a bit earlier this year because I was kind of foaming at the mouth, and then so now having this extended break, has not that I needed any reignited fuel for my fire, but it's certainly just made me so hungry. And I'm at a point now where I'm starting to watch some old races and whatever, and yeah, I want that feeling again. Absolutely. So this has been good for me. Wherever it puts me, it's been good for me.
How do you keep sharp, Michael, in terms of, I know you did a Zoom call with the whole squad, the whole Manchester United squad before you talked to us. How do you keep sharp, keep fit, keep tracks on what everyone else is doing at the moment? Because, you don't know when you're going to go back, but it's kind of like being a super sub, isn't it? Just waiting on the bench for the call up and being ready when it comes.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I don't think there's not a right way to go at the moment. You know, it's all kind of trial and error and kind of planning and hoping we're doing the right thing. It's difficult when you haven't got a date towards something. You know, you kind of normally our trainings and our schedule, or the lads go away for this summer break and they come back with a date, knowing that that's when we start training together. That then the season starts, and that's obviously, yeah, it's an obvious thing for me to say, but not having the date and not having something to work towards, managing the training and the training loads is tricky. So there's a little bit of blend between taking over and maintaining and obviously doing what they can. So, you know, some boys have got some facilities, some haven't got that. Obviously, some of the younger boys in the squad got different facilities to some of the ones that maybe got a bit more money and bigger houses and gyms and what have you. So that creates a bit of a challenge as well. And you're just trying to gauge it. Sometimes we've taken the decision to come off it and give them a few days off and give them a down week, because you can't keep going and going and going and waiting, you know, so we've got to give. So it's managing the load and managing the mind a little bit as well, and the mental state as well of having enough to keep going, but at the same point, not burn out. So it's tricky. It is tricky.
Michael, you were talking about what you love in particular, and the thing that connected you between you and Daniel is just being in the moment and being in the sport and admiring when he's setting somebody up for an overtake. And another question we had from Tom A over Twitter, Daniel, as you've had time to think about this, and maybe this can be your next list for your diary, your best dive bomb overtake of your F1 career. And he's given you a few. I can't remember offhand. I can remember the China 2018 one, but he's gone Hungary 14, Monza 17, or Baku 18. There's your link.
Hungary, saying that's how you do it, baby. Do you remember?
Yeah. I think the Monza 17, I think that was on Bottas from memory. I think Bottas or maybe Kimi. But yeah, I know Monza's probably been my breeding ground for like the longest lunges, you know, from as far back as possible. And yeah, into turn one, I've come from, you know, another postcode, I feel at times. So yeah, Monza turn one's been a good one for me.
But the hairpin is also a good one, isn't it? I mean, we've seen quite a few of you guys doing it there. That is one of the best places to go late on the brakes and go very deep.
Sorry, mate, I missed the first part. Where was that?
About China as well, and the hairpin. You know, you quite often you see people going for miles away, don't you? Really late braking there.
Yeah. It's, you know, some circuits certainly open themselves up for bigger opportunities, and yeah, I mean that's like the part of the sport which is, you know, that's where the competition comes into it. Like, yeah, winning is the best feeling, you know, crossing the line first. But, you know, at times a pretty close second is putting an awesome move on someone and having a race which is full of attacking and overtaking and setting someone up. And you know, what I guess viewers probably don't always see or know is like there's a lot of, sometimes it might be on instinct and it might happen at a split-second decision and then a gap opens and you go. But a lot of the time you're setting someone up, you know, through a lap before, 3 laps before, and you're trying to, in a way, create an opening through what you're doing in their mirrors.
How do you do that? Just for us laymen and those that are just watching on and admiring it, Daniel, how do you go about setting someone up without giving too much away here? But, you know, do you have different ways of doing it for different drivers, for example?
You can normally see a little bit how they are driving, in terms of how rattled or not they are, or you know, in terms of they might start to make a few more mistakes, and you might start to calculate, okay, then this corner's given them some difficulty, so I'm going to keep pressuring in this corner, but maybe that'll open up an opportunity in the next corner, or things like this. So yeah, I don't want to give too much away. I think amongst us racers, like we've obviously got a pretty good idea of, you know, what we're talking about and what we're doing. But yeah, I don't know. I love like little mind games and those battles. You know, that's that's for me like a big chunk of the fun.
Oh, and just how much of a buzz is it when you pull it off? Because it is something that you're famous for.
Yeah, that feeling is like, it's a feeling of, honestly, it's a feeling of power. You know, it's a feeling of like, yeah, I had you, and yeah, I don't know. I've always been a competitor as a kid with anything, you know, from video games to table tennis, or I've just always had that. And yeah, I think as well, you know, to be able to do it on like this level, you know, and go against drivers from all over the world who all think we're better than another, you know, so when you outdo someone in that moment, it's a feeling of, yeah, you feel like you can flex on them a little bit.
Annie, is there an overtake question for me? Is there an overtake that what stands out that you shouldn't have done, like you shouldn't really have done, and there's no way you should have pulled it off, but you pulled it off? Is there one does that make sense? Is there one that stands out like that, where not an obvious one, but it's one where, yeah, you shouldn't be going down there, but you've actually made it stick?
I mean, one that comes to mind was in Monaco on Kimi in 2015. I had to feed him a little bit of a wheel, but yeah. So I guess in that sense, it shouldn't have really been done, in terms of there wasn't really much room, but I did what I had to around that track. So yeah, you got to yeah, I guess in a way it's like bending the rules in some circumstances, and that's what was required there. So
push the boundaries, mate. Push the boundaries, eh?
There you go. There you go. So that's one that probably stands out a little.
I tell you what, Daniel, something that we're all really looking forward to seeing is your battles with Esteban Ocon, because, you know, he's clearly a great racer, a lot of speed. You know, it's a tenacious thing, and he's obviously hungry to get back into the sport. It's disappointing we haven't seen it yet, obviously. But have you had the chance to sort of get to know him? Have you been in contact with him? How much contact have you got with Cyril? How's it kind of working with the team?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. You know, I think whenever you have another teammate, you know, a new teammate, it's certainly a new challenge. It's a new obstacle. It's a new way, or another way to learn and improve your craft, because every driver has a different driving style. You know, everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. So, you know, for 22 races a year, there's no driver that is better than his teammate on every lap, on every corner of every circuit, you know. So you're naturally going to have an area to improve or find something. So that's always exciting. I think, you know, in testing, I think overall our lap time at the end was, if you look at lap times, we were pretty close. So yeah, I know he's gonna bring some competition, absolutely. And yeah, up until I guess the end of testing and that, you know, relationship was good. But yeah, we got to see what happens through competition. But I certainly want to get that going, and yeah, for everyone as well, see how that plays out.
He said on first meeting you as a teammate, you hit him in the face with a water bottle by accident. Is there any truth to that story?
There was definitely. I remember throwing something. Yeah, I don't know. I think we were at the factory, and I don't know if. I want to say it just missed him, or like I was throwing it to someone else and they didn't catch it. Anyway, it wasn't intentional, but he was able to laugh about it. But he probably went home that night a bit skeptical.
You've got to be careful, yeah. Just think back to Brazil with him and Max. So there you go. You want to be careful around Esteban. Michael, a couple of questions in, actually, again, from Twitter, just to finish off with. You've been to Silverstone. We've seen you at Monaco. Which circuits are next? That's from Adrian King. And the other one from Will Langham, the worst and best drivers in football with all those flash cars.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
That's a tough one. Where next? Montreal was a good one I went to. I went to when Jensen won, actually, 2011. That epic one. And that was a good day. That was a good weekend.
Got value for money there with the length of it. It was an incredible day, wasn't it, that one? Where being Barcelona, Monaco. I want to go Spa. Really want to go Spa. And I'd love to go Singapore as well, but for different reasons. But I think that
kind of the electricity and the atmosphere around Singapore. When you see the pictures and the footage of it is special. But I'd love to go to Spawn and see Al Rouge really, and just see them flying up that hill.
I can see you actually camping and going in one of the hot tubs with all the Kimi Räikkönen fans. You want to try that?
You're saying that, I would, I would go and do it that way. I'd love to do it properly. So one day I will get around to it when the schedules allow that. But yeah, I managed to do the F1 experience actually a couple of years ago, Silverstone, in the car, in the 2-seater. Mate, that's when my appreciation for you drivers, Dan, mate. Oh my goodness, the forces.
How was your neck?
My neck was all, yeah. Do you know what? I was all right. It took me everything though to stop me from coming forward, but I was determined because there's a big cushion on the thing in front of me, and I was determined not to hit it because they were saying everyone goes forward and hits it. I was determined, but I had everything pressed against the footwell to stop me and from flying forward. But
who drove you?
Mate, what an experience. Sorry?
Who drove you?
Patrick Friesager.
Oh, listen, you've dodged the question about the footballers.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Who's good and bad behind the wheel?
Who's good and bad behind the wheel? Louis Saha used to think he was a bit of a racer. He had some funky cars. He had some McLaren DTM cars that he put on the road. Wayne was the same. He's had some cars over the years. Who's the worst driver? I remember Ronaldo crashed his Ferrari once in the Winslow Airport tunnels a few years ago, but I've not actually been in the car with him. But I don't know actually who's the worst one. Not really seen enough. Yeah, I've not seen enough to really call someone out as yet.
I mean, you talk about doing track days. I mean, it'd be great to get you in a 2-seater with Daniel at some point. That could be something we could set up if you're going to get out to one, hopefully later in the year. But is that something you'd consider, Daniel, go and scare the backside of him?
I'd love to. The only thing I want to be sitting on the side, so I could see all your reactions.
The facials will be unbelievable, mate.
You know, Daniel, one thing that struck me, like whenever we've done features and stuff, I remember doing that sand buggy feature, lasers, with the two Mercedes boys when Nico was still with Lewis at the team. And what struck me is they've got no sense of jeopardy, like they've got no sense of danger, like off the track. I think you're, pretty fast driver on the normal roads. I mean, safe. But you've got an awareness and a safe awareness of what's going on around you. Who is terrible? Because I guarantee there's a few that just can't translate their skill on track onto the real roads.
Johnny Herbert. Herbert.
There you go.
I won't get in a car with him on a normal road. Even though, again, it's all, ladies and gentlemen at home, very, very safe. He does it very safely, but
I don't think it is.
Coming off a motorway, going around those things, he just doesn't, like most of us would slow to go around the corner coming off a motorway like that.
Yeah.
Because you're not aware of the suspension and the capabilities of these road cars, but these boys are, because they're used to F1.
Yeah, I took him down to Goodwood. And do you remember when Jaguar lent me that F-Type? And it was just the most beautiful car, but it was like a rocket. And Brundle couldn't believe that they'd entrusted me with such a high performance vehicle. Anyway, I was obviously pootling along down to Goodwood with Johnny in the passenger seat. He went, "I've had enough of this, Pinkers. We're swapping over." I could not believe how that man drove. I don't want to get him into trouble, but he should be. Anyone else like that?
But going back to that question, you can answer that. Sorry, I answered that one for you, Daniel.
Yeah.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I'll answer the kind of the first part of the awareness and that. And one thing we do, and I think it's probably just we learn through the speeds that we drive on the track, is you can't afford to look 5 meters in front of you because it's gone in an instant. So you're constantly looking, hundreds of meters down the road. So I think a lot of people. And it's just because haven't learned that skill from driving on racetracks probably. But yeah, you look, always just too short in front of you. So if something comes out, it can surprise you or catch you off guard. Where we're looking so far ahead, and I think that's where we get this awareness and understanding of what's happening and all that sort of stuff. So that's something we learn on the track, which certainly makes it, I think, a bit safer for us on the roads to predict some situations or read some situations. I don't know. I guess with Max, I don't think Max knows how to drive. What do you say, stick? Like manual?
Yeah.
He's not part of that generation. There's no clutch and stick shift. So I think that was quite funny. I don't know.
Surely he must know how to drive a manual. Surely, come on, Max Verstappen must know this.
Maybe now. Don't quote me April 2020. Back then,
there was a time where he had a racing license, but not a driving license on the Dutch roads, wasn't there?
Yeah, that's crazy in terms of to comprehend that. Yeah, he's able to drive 250-kilometer race cars, but can't get in a little road car. But that's how it is. That's how it is. It's unique. But probably Max. That was surprising. Otherwise, I'm a pretty chilled passenger, I reckon.
You know the headline that's going to be taken from this now, don't you, Daniel? Daniel Ricciardo accuses Max Verstappen of being unable to drive a manual car. That'll be dust everywhere. Set yourself up for that.
Sorry, Max.
I prefer driving a manual car. Some of the time, when you're actually proper driving. I'm not just showing my age, mate. I'm from that generation. Maybe Max is too young for me then.
Michael, Daniel, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on and sparing an hour of your time to talk to us about all things F1. Before we go, Michael, obviously staying home and staying safe, but plans, for football, they're obviously trying to form some sort of plan along the lines of F1. That's I suppose what all the fans want to hear is just approximately. I think they've got a plan for an approximate start date, haven't they?
Yeah, I think it just keeps getting put back, Simon. To be honest, it's difficult. It's difficult to commit to anything. I think in some ways we're sitting like everyone else, just waiting. The picture's changing almost daily, weekly. So like going back to what we said before, we're just trying to prepare, ready to pull the trigger to be ready to go. But other than that, same as everyone else. Hoping that it'll be sooner rather than later, but at the same time appreciating that this is a situation and we got to do what we got to do. And like you say, stay home, stay safe, and protect each other, I think.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, Daniel, it's back on the tractor and training hard, I should imagine.
Yeah, pretty much. It's actually been a really good chance to train and have a schedule which allows us to be on the same time zone for a long period, and not deal with jet lag or fatigue from 100 flights or something a year. So just making the most of it and just staying ready.
Do you know the fact that you're at the car for so long? Would it take you a little bit longer to get used to any rustiness or not? Football's a little bit like that. Sometimes it takes you a few games to get up to speed. Would it be that, or would you literally jump in the car and feel at home straight away?
Time will tell.
I think. Let me know then when it happens.
Before you go, Daniel, what is your next challenge with Marcus Stoinis and Scotty James? I don't know if you've seen these lasers and Michael, but they've been doing some interesting challenges to keep themselves occupied. Actually,
that's a question. How many takes was it when you threw it over the tree to get in the boot of the car?
Wait! How could I forget? It's recycling tonight.
Go on, be honest.
Yeah. Let's say it wasn't the first take.
Yeah, okay. What was too good to be true, that one?
Did you puke up after drinking the raw eggs?
Alrighty. Let's go for it. You good? You good? Alright. You sure? Alright, cool.
Did you? Alright, so...
Oh, I missed that one.
the boys drank them. I faked it, like did the whole over the shoulder thing.
No.
I thought it looked more obvious, but apparently not, because even Marcus was like, "Oh, you did that easy." I was like, anyway.
That's what you do with alcohol.
Wait, what was that? Yeah, that one. Wait, with alcohol.
With tequila, yeah.
Yeah, tequila shots, no thanks. But we'll see. The next one, we'll do something tomorrow. We want to get, it's actually harder than you think to like stay creative, but we'll figure something out.
Michael, Nats, Daniel, brilliant. Really enjoyed it. As you said, stay home, stay safe. And there's loads more content, by the way, this weekend. Coverage of the Chinese Grand Prix on Sunday with Natalie. I say the Chinese Grand Prix, but of course it's the virtual Grand Prix. So there you go. We'll look forward to that. Michael, best of luck in your endeavours. We hope to see you guys very, very soon. And the same with you, Daniel. Appreciate your time. Thanks a lot.
No worries.